Um, I know if you're driving around the state, make sure you're safe. There are many people out there. They're gonna be drinking, and so make sure that if you're gonna drink, make sure you don't drive because your drinking habit could be a dangerous habit for those that are on the freeway. You want to drive and make sure you return home. So make sure that you have someone accompany you that will not be drinking because it is safe for those who are on the freeway as well. So be careful. This is a wonderful day. Make sure that you are safe, that your family, whatever you be celebrating, that you return home safely because there is a lot of accident on the freeway. To avoid that, you have to be cautious and be careful. So, but anyway, there is a lot of confusion. So the topic of discussion today is anatomy of the federal government or the state government. So I'm going to try to talk about it. What is a federal government, and how does a federal government functions? There is a state or county by county deliberations that is going on within the Southern Cameroon identity. I don't intend to criticize, but I just intend to make understanding how does the federal structure look like? Because what is a federal structure? So, United States practice federal government. United States is a federal structure of government, but this information is more specifically to the people of Southern Cameroon and the Ambazonians. And how does it gonna look like? And so that is very important that you understand what is a federal structure. So federal government is one of the best systems on the planet. It's one of the best that we can admire. That is giving power to the local each areas to administer their affairs, and that each of those areas has certain authority and to mitigate their own policy within their own indigenous area. And so United States practice federalism. And so federal system, like United States, they have 51, 50, 51 states, depending on where you're looking at. They have 51 or 50 to 51 states. That is the United States. But let's look at the structure of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. How does it going to look like? Because they are saying county by county. Yes, county by county, which means the government bypass a certain level of the government and due straight to the county. So here there is a the state is missing in this county by county, and it can be confusing to many people and many people in our lower area, thinking that we are a county by county. County is not a state. County is not a state. County is different from a state. State has authority over a county. So in Federal Republic of Ambazonia, let's look at the original picture. The original picture of the Federal Republic, we intended to function as a federal structure. The federal structure of the Southern Cameroon doesn't mean that we're going to federate it with the neighboring country, La République du Cameroon. So federal structure doesn't mean we are going to federate it with the neighboring country, La République du Cameroon. That's the clear misconceptions that people miss or often confuse with. So the Southern Cameroon territory as a whole is going to function as a federal government. In other words, we originally have 13 divisions. So in the northwest and southwest, let me put it in that way for people understanding. Originally, we have northwest and southwest. In other words, if we are to put northwest and southwest as a two states in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, if we were to include that northwest and southwest to be a two state in the Federal Republic of Ambazonian government, then we need to spare bound that we're going to have a two-state in Federal Republic of Ambazonia, which is Northwest and Southwest. But if we want to convert to the 13 divisions that make up the Northwest and Southwest into a federal state, in other words, the 13 division need to be upgraded to a state level. In other words, the 13 original divisions that exist, for example, the Mezan division, the Mokutunja division, the Nonga Amentu division. So all those areas will be converted to a full state. In other words, we will have 13 states that make up the Northwest and Southwest. I'm putting Northwest and Southwest to clarify the differences. So if we were to run just the two states of the Northwest and Southwest, then the Northwest, when I talk of federal government, I don't mean federate with the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. There is a great difference that I want people to understand between the state level and the federal government level. United States practice federations. And so I want to interject to clarify the differences, how the people of Amazonia should function. So if we say county by county by itself is not a state. County functions under a state. Let's dwell on again. Let's say we have two Northwest and Southwest from the original. So the Northwest would be a federal state, and the Southwest would be another federal state within the federal government of Ambazonia. I hope that makes sense. So if we want to convert or upgrade the divisions, let's say Noga Mantium, let's say Fako, let's say Lebialem or Manu, we convert all those 13 divisions to a full state, then we will have 13 federal state of Federal Republic of Ambazonia. So if we were to have a 13 federal state within the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, then we have a federal government. The federal government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia will appoint the federal secretary. The federal secretary will reside in Boya. The federal secretary in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia will be residing in Boya, which is the capital of the Ambazonian government, country. Let's take, for example, in the federal government of Ambazonia, the president shall appoint federal judges. The federal government or the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia shall appoint a federal judges. And those federal judges shall be confirmed by the Senate in Ambazonian territory. The Ambazonian shall function with a Congress and a Senate. The Federal Republic of Ambazonia shall function. There are three arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The judiciary department, which oversees the laws of the country, the implementation of the laws of the country. The legislature branch of the government shall oversee the laws of the government. And so the legislature shall have the Senate and the Congress of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. If the federal judge or the federal judge of a state in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia are appointed by the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, then he or she shall be confirmed by the Senate in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. So let's say the president make a law, or the president appoint, or the president, that federal judge in a state can override or veto a decision made by the president so long as it violates a certain laws of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. The federal secretary shall implement policy within the structure of the federal government of the Southern Cameroon. But within the state, they have its own power. The state has autonomy. In other words, the state, let's say Bakassi is a state, or Fako is a state. Fako is a state, but Fako will have a county. A county is a local government within the Fako division, but it has nothing to do with the Fako state. If the Fako has a governor, the governor will make decisions based on the state of Fako as a whole. But remember, the state of Fako and the county of Fako are two separate things. The state is higher than the county. So the state level is higher than the county level. So when the federal government appoints, let's say, a federal judge in Fako, and the state of Fako has their own state, they can appoint their own secretary in the state of Fako. So the state of Fako judge cannot override the federal judge in the state of Fako. Let's say Fako, let me go over again because it can be very confusing. Let's say Fako is a state. Fako has a county. Fako, there are various counties within the Fako state. If the state will operate, they will have their own state government, that is autonomy. They will have like the judge, they will have their police. The county is going to have their own police force. Their local police force has within a certain geographical locations that are spellbound that they operate. Let's say, for example, Tico is a small county within Fako. The police in a city or in a county in Fako County cannot arrest someone in Tico because Tico is autonomy. So they will have to collaborate with the police in Tico that they have someone they need. They will collaborate within the Fako division that we have a person in Tico. And the city police in Tico, which is a small county, will collaborate to work together to ensure that that person, this is prevent the abuses of power within each level of the government. Let's go over again. Let's say the federal state, Fako is the federal state. The federal state will, the president appoint a federal judge. The federal judge can override the decision made by the president because they have equal power to any high level. So the decision they make will obviously propagate to the rest of the other 13 states if we were to function under 13 states. But if we were to function under 2 states, let's say Northwest and Southwest become 2 states within the Federal Republic of Ambazonian, then the various divisions will become a county. I think that makes sense. Let's say we were to operate under 2 federal states in the Federal Republic of Ambazonian, Northwest and Southwest. So the various divisions become a county within the state, within each of the state, or we call it Northwest state or Southwest state, whatever the name we're going to be implementing. So let's say something happened. The police let's say if we were to operate under 2 states within the Federal Republic of Ambazonian, the police in Boyakani cannot arrest someone in Northwest zone. The police cannot arrest someone in the Northwest zone. The reason is to limit the power with power abuse. If the police in Tico want to arrest someone, they must have evidence why they want to arrest the person. And they have to collaborate together in order to operate. But the police cannot, because it's a police in Tico, must arrest someone in the Northwest. So likewise, the one in the Northwest cannot arrest someone in the Tico, but there must be inter-city collaboration. I think that makes sense. So let's take, for example, let's say in the case of a federal judge, the federal judge in the Federal Republic of Amazonia is someone appointed by the president, and the state has their own judge. The judge, they have their own Supreme Court. You have the Federal Supreme Court and you have the State Supreme Court. The State Supreme Court cannot override the federal judge because they have a certain spare bound, they have a certain frame in which they operate. So the state federal judge cannot override the veto of a state federal judge. But the state federal judge can override, the federal judge can override the state federal law, and even including the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. This is the essence, is to avoid the abuse of power. So when we speak about the county by county and we bypass the state, then that becomes wondering, are we in a state? Is there a state that exists? So there is something that we need to address so that the people start understanding what is a state and what is a county. Because a county by itself is not a state. It operates under a state. Let's say the allocation of resources. Let's say the federal government, if we were to operate either two states in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, or they upgrade the 13 divisions to a full state, then we will operate under 13 states. And each of the 13 states, we have their own governor elected within that state. The governor will oversee, let's give a typical example for those who are familiar with Ngokutungia. Let's say we upgrade the 13 divisions into a full state. And it happens that we have Ngokutungia to a full state. So if Ngokutungia become a full state, the 13 villages, we have a county. There will be a county in each of those divisions or in each of those 13 villages. So, but since they operate as a full state, if Ngokutungia were to upgrade it as a full state, then the governor of Ngokutungia will be residing in Ndok, which Ndok is the city. So Ndok will become a county. So the county in Ngokutungia will have a mayor. A mayor is the head of a county. And that is why I want, then that bring into the police force. The police force. Let's say in Ngokutungia will have one. If Ngokutungia were to become a full state under the Federal Republic of Amazonia structure, Ngokutungia will become a state, and the capital will be Ndok. Ndok is a capital in the Ngokutungia state. So Ngokutungia will have a governor, and within Ndok will operate into this. Ndok will become a capital within the Ngokutungia, and it will become a county because it is a city by itself. And so the city will have a mayor. The mayor will be elected by the people of that city. So the mayor will will select a candidate for the police force. Let's take, for example, the mayor in Ngokutungia will select a police commissioner from. So you have the councillors that operate within the city. The councillor will operate within the city. The councillors are elected by the people within the vicinity of the county, of the Ndok County. And once elected, they have a mayor, a city mayor. The city mayor, there will be people that running for the seat of a councillor and the post of a mayor, city mayor. Police force Once the city mayor is elected, depending on the terms of the constitution as specified, then the mayor will select the city manager, because the city manager is not an elected position. It's a specialist that can be selected either from the Federal Republic of Amazonia that has the experience and knowledge and skill to develop the city of Ndakani. So let's say if the police commissioner will also be selected from various towns and cities within the Federal Republic of Amazonia to become the city police within the Federal Republic, will become the city police in a city of Ndakani County. Let's take, for example, if they select a certain police, they select several candidates. The candidate will go through interview, and through the interview, finally the city will select the best candidate that become the city police that has the knowledge and skills to be able to develop the police force. And you have the city manager. The city manager is responsible for the day-to-day running of the city. I hope that makes sense. So there is a great confusion. So if we were to break down, let's break it down for people understanding. Because when you say county by county, there is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of mismatch here. So it requires some clarification to understand. Let's have a full structure. Give me a minute. I hope that makes sense. So I will be discussing more about this topic, about what is the structure of the Southern Cameroon in terms of federal level and in terms of how government should look like, reflect the Southern Cameroon. Uh, but anyway, but in another news, this news here is here in the United States. If for those who are living here in the United States, this news is about you. There is a lettuce. If you bought lettuce and you're about to prepare, there is a lettuce they call Roman lettuce. Roman lettuce. So this lettuce is for salad. So if you have or you bought salad yesterday or today and you're about to prepare for the Thanksgiving, so there is a Roman lettuce, according to uh, the federal government report, that there is an outbreak of E. coli that affected almost 11 states. So I don't have the list of the names here, but they said the E. coli has affected 11 states, and which are with some disease, and that uh, and one person has had experienced kidney failure in related to lettuce. So if you see the brand name Roman, Romiane, lettuce, Luctuce. So if you have this in your Thanksgiving preparation for salad, then you want to discard it. You say nobody, and once you discard it, make sure you keep the area clean, because it is imperative that there is an outbreak of E. coli. Is a very dead disease that is affecting 11 states here in the United States. So if you are watching and you have the family members, please let them know, and so that make sure that those letters are discarded. But it's here in the United States, not elsewhere. So this is a nice. So if you got this, and make sure that you discard the letters for those who are here in the United States. So make sure if you're watching or you have your family members, make sure you call them. Say if you have Roman lettuce that you bought for salad for your family for Thanksgiving, make sure you discard it, because there is an outbreak of E. coli that have affected 11 states, and one person has experienced kidney failure. Just imagine, because of the E. coli. So they haven't identified where this bacteria originally from, but they're trying to figure out. So that is why they're spreading the information here in the United States that there are 11 states that have been affected by E. coli. So make sure that if you have lettuce, make sure you trash it, keep the environment clean. It is imperative that you take this as a matter of seriousness. So one person has experienced kidney failure, and because of E. coli outbreak, it's a very deadly bacteria that has just affect many people, and some are admitted in the hospital. So you can understand how deadly this disease is. So for thank you, and I want to talk about the people of Bali. I know there is a massacre going on in Bali. So if you are here in Bali, you want to find out whether if one of your brothers or sister was affected among the massacre that occurred yesterday and last night in Bali. So we stand with the people of Bali together. I told you yesterday that we are at war. So the enemy is looking for ways to. So we are at war. And so we have to be very smart. If you are the Amber Defense Group, and you need to understand that we are in a mode, at war. We are at war. And so therefore, you have to be make sure that you understand the anatomy of the structure where you are, and you often scan your environment to ensure that you are in a safe area, because La Republique is a dead La Republique is a dead animal. La Republique is a dead animal, and La Republique is a dead animal. So you have to be very careful wherever you operate. You know, La Republique is playing every plan. Remember that Southern Cameroon territory was never a colonial territory of La Republique. We find a vicious cycle of murdering our people constantly. So we are at war. And so if you happen to be, then you make sure that you constantly scan your area. Don't always believe that you are in a safe environment, because make sure that the area where you are, make sure that you block every angle close to your location. And make sure you have a night watchman. A night watchman, let's take for a marine, for those who haven't done marine navigations. In a marine navigations, in a marine navigations, there is what they call a watchman. The watchman has a length of time, whether 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on the length of time. And the purpose of and for that person they call a watchman. The watchman is to scan, make sure that the vessel that is heading to a particular location or navigating to a particular location is safe. Because in a sea, it's an open plain area. So since sea is an open plain area, there is a possibility that there's another vessel that may be coming towards your direction. And that is why you have a night watchman. The night watchman always stay at the cabin to make sure that he can make sure it is safe, that the navigation is heading towards the right direction. So if we have a night watchman, the purpose of the night watchman is to provide internal security to monitor and alarm that there is a problem that is coming. But when you decide, so you have got to be smart. The people of Ambazonian, we are at war. The enemy is planning. but we have to be more smarter than before. So that is why we are today mourning the people that were shot indiscriminately at the Bali. And so we are with the people of Bali. We stand with the people of Bali. And we also appreciate what has been done by the people of Libya. The people of Libya is an exemplary behavior, showing how patriotism and how our enemy is La Republic. And we will never relentlessly allow La Republic to manipulate or control our territory. We own our territory. We were never a colonial territory of La Republic. We are a citizen. Why can't we rule ourselves? We have ruled ourselves. In the 50s and up to the 60s, up to the 67, our last prime minister was A.J. Agustin Ngumjua. That was the last prime minister of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. The first was John Wu Foncha. Then the second, the first was A.N. Endele, and second was John Wu Foncha, and thirdly was Augustin Ngumjua. They amplify the spirit of the people of Ambazonia. We amplify a steady government, a government of our people, and then they stood for the interest of our people. Why should the world community believe that La Republic should be able to manage the people of Southern Cameroon? Our people deserve their own government that represents the aspirations of the people of Ambazonia, and not La Republic du Cameroon. And guess what again? So when you are the watchman, so you must have organized yourself and be well prepared that you have an enemy that is coming around your area. You constantly scan within your area, within the parameter, to ensure that there is a peace around your area, to ensure that the massacre doesn't occur again. This is imperative that if you are an Ambazonian, you understand that our people is at war and the enemy is La Republic du Cameroon. We have spoken because when we have world community that they misunderstood the fact and they have evidence and they don't want to follow the evidence, then we must defend our territory. We must defend our territory. Because when the world use the word separatist, that is in abominations. It is imperative that they understand the terminology and the word they use in context related to the matters in subject matter. Because in 1961, when the United Nations voted, 64 nations overwhelmingly vote for the sovereignty of the people of Southern Cameroon. And they deserve their own government to be able to manage themselves. They do not need a foreign government to manage their own territory. They need themselves, the sons and daughters, to elect their representative to be able to decide the future of the people of Southern Cameroon and not a foreign government. You all know what happened in history. You all know, for those who did European history, you know the Metternich. You know the Metternich under Prussia. So Prussia knew that a divided Europe was more for the interest of the Prussian government, Prussian authority. A divided Europe gives an opportunity for the Prussian government. And that is why they banned all pamphlets to be circulating. Because they believe that by banning the pamphlets, the people will be educated on the outside of Prussia. And so they ensure that such pamphlets exist no more. But unfortunately, they fail to understand that while something is banned, it prompts the citizen to investigate more. Why are they preventing it from us? So our people of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, we were elected, we had our own government. And why should we be ruled by another foreign government? And that is why when you look at Europe, the nationalism became the spellbound that many nations become. You all learn about Germany. And that is why I keep on valuing Otto von Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck, he knew he was skillful. He knew that the German territory must be free. But France did not see Germany as a nation. But France will use every means to make sure that they forsake the people of Germany. But the smartest person that German ever have is Otto von Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck was very skillful, he was very smart, and he used his authority and unified the entire Germany. And that is why the proclamation of independence of Germany was done in the Hall of Mirror in Paris. That is why France will never regret that the independence of Germany was proclaimed in the Hall of Mirror in France. So France has been the architect that is destabilizing the world. But I am here to assure the people of Southern Cameroon that we will never, in any circumstances, be ruled by La Republique. We are capable. We have the smartest people that have graduated from the smartest university across the globe. We are from we have worked within the best government in the world. And yet we have our own government back home that is being managed by a terrorist government. And yet we can't speak up. Maybe this is the moment that we must stand and face the reality that La Republique would never, in any circumstances, rule the people of Southern Cameroon. We have the smartest people, both in economic, both in financial, but we don't have access. And yet, we have La Republique has implemented divide and rule system. La Republique implement what? Divide and rule system. Divide and rule system is a method in which they appoint their own governor to manage our own internal affairs. And by doing so, it fosters our own policy that we can implement for the benefit of the sons and daughters of the Southern Cameroon. That is the essence of appointing someone that is answerable to the regime. That is why you know why they have very adamantly refused the federal structure. Because it's giving power to the indigenous to decide the future of their own destiny. And that is why La Republique is adamantly refusing the federal system. And so that is why we opted that we don't need them, because we are a nation. When La Republique was voted in 1960, Southern Cameroon was not part of that memorandum. Southern Cameroon wasn't. And so when the Southern Cameroon was voted in 1961, La Republique was not part. And so we are exceptionally different people. And we must sustain and maintain our sovereignty. We have the world body that is the most corrupted body in the current century. I have never believed that the world body is the most corrupted body in this entire, and it all happens that we have the headquarters is here in the United States, in New York. And I urge, we have, you all know what happened. When the Attorney General under Obama administration indicted the FIFA organizations because of corruption. So we, the United States, have the power to make a difference to the world community. We here in the United States have the power to make a difference to the world community. But we have Attorney General that has the power to indict the United Nations Secretary General because corruption has spellbound that entire organization. Because how many people must be dying before the United Nations to act? We have at least almost 1,000 people have died in the Southern Cameroon. At least over 800 are in Nigeria seeking a refuge. And yet, Article 1608 of XV of the United Nations spellbound with our sovereignty. And the United Nations should have acted upon that document without any delay. But however, they are the most corrupted organization on the planet that one can ever envisage. So, fellow brothers and sisters, we are at war, and the enemy is La Republique. So I want to emphasize again for all those that are in this, that we are at war, and that whenever you organize yourself under defense system, you have to have a night watchman. The night watchman, either one or two, they have to be in a sectionally area. And they make sure that they scan to make sure that the enemy is not encroaching to your defined area. because we have to work in collaboration. Because once you work in collaboration, it is easy to defeat the enemy. We are not obligated to, to have an alliance with La Republic. La Republic need to leave our territory. And I will continue to speak, and I will continue to speak in everywhere I go within the here in the United States until the United States government are able to answer my prayer. I will continue to speak, and I will speak everywhere I go within the United States government, and until the United States government answer my prayer. Remember, the Kosovo crisis. Bill Clinton was the president of the United States during the Kosovo crisis, when the citizens were being slaughtered indiscriminately. President Bill Clinton put an end, and today the people of Kosovo are proud to be a nation. They're proud to have a government that represents them. And because United States make a difference to the people of Kosovo, now the people are residing. There is peace that is prevalent in Kosovo. And I urge the Trump administration that when Bill Clinton make a difference to the people of Kosovo, and today the people of Kosovo, there is no fighting. The people are enjoying the peace and security. They are able to govern themselves. And so I am asking the State Department to make a difference to the rest of the world. We are a nation and we love peace. We are a Christian. Today we are celebrating Thanksgiving. We are celebrating because we love one another. But by virtue that we are the strongest nation on the planet, we have to make a difference. We don't have to ignore the reality. Because imagine when United Nations headquarters that is physically here and distort factual information and not to persuade the rightful information, then we are not the nation that we think we are, because we have to make a difference in the world community. You can see a constantly slaughtering of the citizens. Because why are they asking? A government that is accountable, a government that is responsible, a government that meets the aspiration of the people. Our people are in disarray. Our people are in the forest. Our people are struggling. Our people don't have where to go. Our people are being constantly killed like animals by a government that has no prerogative authority over our sovereign people. I am here bringing this to you, that as you celebrate your Thanksgiving, my people back home whom I left behind are not going to be celebrating. They are living and languishing in the forest, in the midst of an invasion of a foreign nation. And yet we have what they call the so-called Africa organization. That is the most useless organization on this African continent. I think Africa can make a difference by reinstitute an all the current organization called African OAU is a redundant organization. We need a fresh organization that meet the aspiration of the people of the 21st century. Imagine that China is now the recolonized Africa. I mean, it is quite painful. It is quite painful. You all learn from history. I don't know which school where you went to, except in La Republic, where censorship is a high level. That most of the Francophones were never taught about the history. They distort the history for the benefit of the Francophone because they don't want to let the people know the reality. But Africa as a whole, imagine you are being recolonized by China. And the police force are being taken by China, including South Africa. What a wonderful, disgraceful in an African continent. It is quite amazing and very deplorable. If you are not aware, but I am here to let you know that China is recolonized Africa for another term again. Imagine Africa cannot have their own independent police force because they are corrupted and they are expecting the Chinese government to educate them the use of police force. It is a recolonization of the Africa by the Chinese government. There is a recolonization of the Africa by the Chinese government. And first of all, they're taken over by the police force. They control the police force. They control every arm of the government for certain countries because they cannot invest. Why is Africa backward? Because one, they did not establish higher level of institute of technology. They did not invest in education system. They ignore the education system. They reward they reward their family. They ignore research, establish high level of research in technology. They never invest in those areas. They invest on their own personal family, and that the money has been siphoned to elsewhere in Europe. Imagine Paul Biya traveling to Europe with 40 families. And those 40 families, each time he leaves Europe, is almost 2 million US dollars. Each trip of Paul Biya in Europe is almost equivalent to 2 million US dollars. Imagine 2 million US dollars should have been invested in scientific research, open high level hospital. Imagine you have the Senate president. He is currently in Europe for medical treatment. If he's 80 years old, had he been able to invest in a hospital setting that would be able to meet the standard of Europe, but he's rushing to Europe for his medical treatment. And each of those treatments, he has a company delegate to Europe. And guess what? Those money, that's the money should have opened the highest hospital that will provide excellent hospital care with a given standard that must be provided. But today he's rushing to Europe for medical care. For those who have invested their own money in research, scientific and hospital research. And today he is rushing there, and he is the Senate President of La Republique. Do you get it? Do you get it right? You see, Africa is absolutely in disarray mode. There is no investment, there is no scientific studies, there is no promotion of research, it's absolutely a corrupted system of Africa. We need a totally dynamic change of African culture from the entire continent of Africa. Because the current leadership in the entire continent of Africa, they lack vision, they lack integrity, they lack purpose, and they have no knowledge what they are intended to. And so if Africa does not change the current culture, then Africa is heading to a collision. Imagine in Africa, we have a police force that is from China. That is absolute disgracing. Let's take, for example, in Nigeria, for those who live in Nigeria, this is a very shocking news. There is a kidney harvesting that is going on in Nigeria, and most of those companies are residing in Nigeria. So I think there is a world community need to start investigating what is going on in Nigeria. There is a kidney harvesting going on in Nigeria. So if you find your relative disappearing in Nigeria, then you know that his kidney may have been harvested. There is a market going on in Nigeria and Ghana. For those who are not aware, there is a market going on between Nigeria and Ghana. It's where they harvest kidney. So when they got people, they said they told them they promised job in Saudi Arabia, that they promised job in Kuwait, they promised job in South Korea, and they promised that they have job. I am sure you may be heading to another kidney transplant because your kidney, your liver are being harvested. There is ongoing on in the market now in Saudi Arabia, and Africa is the hot market where those Africans are being transported to. They create what we call an agency. They create what they call an agency. And the agency, the individual in those agencies, understood the content where, and they don't reveal those content. And so they promise you they have a job in Saudi Arabia. They promise you they have a house job. And they promise you they have a house job in Korea. And then they pay you heavy amounts. Immediately you landed, you immediately transported to the hospital where you will be sedated and harvest your kidney, your liver, and any other organs that is needed and preserved for future transplant. Please, if you are in Nigeria, for the Nigerian government is one of the most, is a corrupt system. But if you are not careful, I am speaking here for those who are not aware, please, fellow brothers Africa, We are in a problem world. We have a leadership crisis, and this leadership crisis is affecting indigenous Africa. So I want to be caution to everyone that be careful, because Nigeria and Ghana is housing those markets. For those who are not aware, I am sure the Ghanaian might work out to make sure that they all route those ground forces that are transporting people to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and whatever, and South Korea for kidney harvesting and liver harvesting. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for watching. Wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Good day.